What's up, my people? In this video, we're going to be talking about exponential growth and decay. This topic is actually pretty easy to do, so I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it. So, first things first, the formula for exponential growth and decay is going to be y equals a times 1 plus or minus the rate, and I'll talk about what that means, and then x will go up there. X up there is like time or something like that, okay? Now, excuse me, so A, there's a couple things that's going to be really important. A is the big thing, is there like one of your biggest thing. A is going to always be your initial. You might see the word starting. You might see beginning. But the big one is your y-intercept. Whatever that A is right here, that's going to always be your y-intercept. Always going to be your y-intercept, okay? That's first. So, for example, if you look over here at the decimal screen, let's say I had 4 parentheses, just put any number inside the parenthesis, and then I'm going to raise it to the x. Notice this dot right here is at 4. Now, if I change that number in front to 2, the dot changes to 2. If I change that number in front to 6, the dot right there, the y-intercept is now 6. So no matter what happens in my equation, that the front number is going to always be your starting point. It's going to always be your y-intercept. Now, the R is your rate. R stands for rate. Your rate is always a percent. And we got to change that percent to a decimal. So sometimes, like if your rate is 15%, that equals 0.15. If the rate is 2%, 0.02. Think of this like money. 2 cents is written as 0.02. 15 cents is written as 0.15. Okay? Now, let's put this all together. So when we're doing these, inside the parenthesis, your rate is always going to be 1 plus your percent or 1 minus your percent. It's all going to depend on if the word is, if it's a growth or a decay. Okay? Growth graphs always look like this, because when you look at them left to right, they're increasing, which is what that one is. If you look at the decimal graph, decay is always decreasing like that. You're going to always have a growth if the number right here is bigger than 1. You will always have a decay. I forgot to put the X over here. If this number right here is smaller than 1. So for example, if I make this 3, if I change that to like 1/3, you see the graph changed. It made it a decay because now it's going left to right. Okay, so growth, if you look at it left to right, it's increasing. A decay, if you go left to right, it's decreasing. So anytime you have a decimal point smaller than 1, let's say 0.8, that's a decay. But if I had 1.8, you will see that it's a growth. All right. So how can I tell which numbers if my rate is going to be a growth or decay? So what you have to understand is that you're going to get some questions that might say it's going to be a growth of 3%, or it could be a decay of 3%. And how you're going to do that is you're going to treat it like money and treat it like a dollar, right? If I wanted a growth of 3%, that's going to be $1 plus the 3%. Because remember, I got 3%, and that's the same as 0.03. So I added it to 1. A decay, I take that 3 from 1. So this right here is a growth of 3%. This is a decay of 3%. So let's do another one. If I wanted a growth of 20%, let's do 20%. If I wanted a growth of 20%, that's going to be 1.20. If I wanted a decay of 3%, that's going to be 0.80, because I got to do 20% is 0.20. And when I do 1 minus 0.20, you'll get 0.8. So this is a growth of 20%. This is a decay of 20%. What I want you to do is pause the video right now, and I want you to tell me what do you think the growth and decay of 15% would be. And go. Now that you have the time to try it, I'm going to start with the decay side, because this as a percent is 0.15. If I do 1 minus 0.15, that's going to leave me at 0.85. That will be in the parenthesis. If I want to do a growth of 15%, 1.15. Okay? And then finally, this X right here, this one right here, is usually things like time. That's the thing that changes. So it's not going to always be time. You might see floors. You might talk about months, all that kind of stuff. So that is what changes. So A, let's go back over. A is your initial, your beginning, your y-intercept. R is your rate, and we have to change that to a percent. And then we're going to either add it to 1 if it's a growth, or we're going to subtract 1 from 1 if it's a decay. And that's the gist of it. Okay, so let's answer some of these questions. Excuse me. All right, so a country pledges to reduce. Oh, before I do that, let's talk about some words that growth and decay. What are some words? So some of the words for growth might be things like something like, it might say increase. You might see words like climbed. You might see words like compounded. Those are all growth words. Decay words, you might see stuff like reduce. You might see words like fallen. You might see words like removed. All those words signify that something is going down. Reduced, fallen, removed, all that stuff. Okay, now let's go ahead and answer these questions. So, a country pledges to reduce its annual CO2 emissions by 4% per year. Up 4%. What do you think 4% is? That's my rate. If the emissions in 2022 were 6,300, that's going to be that number they tell me. That means that's where we started. That is our initial. What are the maximum allowable emissions in the year 2031? So we got to write our equation. Y equals A 1 plus or minus R X. Okay, so Y is equal. What is the number that we're starting with? That one. That goes in the front. Now we got to do our rate. We got to do 1, and this says reduce. So we got to take away 4%. And then how much time is it between 2022 to 2031? That is 9 years. Okay? So this Y equals 6,300. And if I do $1 minus, say, 4 cents, that's going to leave me at 96 cents times 9. So all you do is go over here to Desmos, 6,300, parenthesis, 0.96, close parenthesis, raise that 2, and then we said 9. And so our answer is 4,362.96. So what this is saying is, if we start at 6,300, in 9 years, it'll be down to 4,362, give or take, okay? Or you can just put 4,363. I'll be okay with that too. All right, makes sense? Hopefully that does. We're going to keep moving. We got a total of 6 of these. All right, let's look at some of the keywords. Rentals in a high-rise apartment building get more expensive the higher up. More expensive the higher up. That means that's going to be a increase. So this is going to be a growth. Okay. The ground floor rent is $1,800. That means that's our starting point. So this number is important. The rent increases 2%. That's a rate. That's a good one. What is the rent on the 10th floor? Okay, so let's go ahead and write this out. Y equals A 1 plus or minus R times X. So our A, we started out with 1180. Then we got to do 1. And because this is a growth, this will be plus our 2%, which is 0.02. And we want to know the 10th floor. So that's what number is going to go up here. 10 equals 1180. And then I'm going to do 1.02 times 10 to the 10th. So let's go ahead and put that in here and see what this says. 1180. 1.02 raised to the 10th. So this is going to be 1,438.41. So what this is saying is that you go to get your first apartment. It's in the sky rise. The very first floor, it's $1,180. Every floor you go up, it's an increase in the price 2%. So if you're like, hey, I want to stay on the 10th floor, your rent would be $1,438 because they raise it the higher you go. I guess maybe because you got better views. What if you want to stay on the 20th floor? Ooh, how much would that rent be? 20th floor, that'll put you at 1,753. What if they had a 100th floor? How much would that rent be? Oh, geez, 8,548. So with your rent going up 2% every floor, the higher you go, the more you got to pay. All right, enough of that one. Let's get to the next one. Okay, so a company promises to release a new smartphone model every month. Okay. Each smartphone's battery life will be 3% longer. What does that mean? 3% longer than the previous model. That is definitely a growth. Okay. If the current model battery life is 631 minutes, that is going to be our initial, because that's what it's telling us we're starting with. What will the latest model's battery life be 6 months from now? So that's going to be our time. So let's write everything out. Y equals A, parenthesis 1 plus or minus R. X, remember the plus is if it's a growth, a minus used if it's a decay. So Y equals our initial, so we're starting at 631, parenthesis 1 plus the 3%. And then we're looking at 6 months. That's what changes the time, okay? And then 631 times 1.03, when you add those together to the 631, 1.03 raised to the 6. So according to this, when the new phone comes out, if it's 3% longer, the latest model's battery life is going to be 753 minutes versus the 631 minutes of the old phone. You know how the new iPhones and all that stuff do. All right, so let's keep going. Okay. A robot vacuum cleans a dirty floor using multiple passes. During each pass, 25% of the dirt is removed. If it's removed, what does that mean? Removed means that's a decay because it's going down. If the floor initially had 19 ounces, and you see the word initially, it said initially, that's our starting point, has 19 ounces of dirt. How much dirt will remain after 5 passes? That's our time. So let's go ahead and do this really quick. There we go. And then, so our A is going to be 19. You don't have to put the 0.00. It doesn't make a difference. And then I got my 1. But since this is a decay, my number should be less than 1. So minus my 25% is 0.25. And then my thing that changes is going to be the how many passes. That's going to be 5 up there. So 19. This is going to be 0.75 because 1 minus 0.25 is 0.75. It's like if you had $1 but you lose a quarter, 75 cents. And then let's put that over here and see what it says. I probably just could click the X. 19, parenthesis, 0.75, close parenthesis, raised to the 5. I'm going to show you something. It's not graphing because there's no more variables. But let's say I took that 5 off. And put the X up there. You will see it'll cross at 19. Just to remind you, that is your y-intercept all the time. But once we put a number in for X, it'll actually give us a calculation that we're looking for. And this calculation we're looking for is 4.5. Let's call that 4.51. So, man, that's not that bad. After 5 passes, it'll go from 19 ounces to 4.51 ounces because it's a decay, meaning the numbers are going down. All right, let's do 2 more, and then that'll be done. Actually, I want you to try this on your pause video right now and try number 5 on your own. And let's see what you get. And go. Now that you've had the opportunity to try, let's see what you got. And I'm just going to go right to it. My y equals, it starts here. And after each bounce, the ball returns has a 17% less than previous. What kind is that? That's a decay. It's less than. And when you do 1 minus 0.17, you're going to get 0.83. And if you're ever not sure, just do 1 minus 0.17 and you get your 0.83. You don't have to put the 0. You can if you want. And then the time, or the thing that changes, is the number of bounces. 7th bounce. So let's go ahead and put that in decimals over here. 173, parenthesis, 0.83. Close parenthesis, go up to the 7, and you get 46.9, let's say 95 centimeters, because that's what we were talking about, somewhere up there. All right, but, only thing I'm worried about is the correct number, okay? Oh, centimeters right up here. All right, and I want y'all to try number 6 on your own. And this is similar to the one that we just did. And pause the video right now and go. Now that you've had a chance to attempt it, let's see what you get. Okay. The rentals in a high rise get more expensive the higher up, like we did earlier. The ground floor, the rent is $19. That is our initial point. That means no matter what happens, I'm gonna pay at least $19.80. The rate increases. Oh, this was 4% per floor. I got to do my 4% plus 1 because this makes it up. The rent increases. That makes it a growth. And then the 5th floor. So $19.80. Parenthesis 1.04. Close parenthesis, raised to the 5. So on the 5th floor, you can expect to pay $2,408.97. That's what it's going to cost on the 6th floor. Well, if you have any more questions, come see me, and I will talk to y'all soon. Have a good day.